Let's go. Podcast number 3. How we feeling, boys?
Feeling good. A little tired, but it's a good Monday. It was a good day. Good Monday.
What happened?
I was just busy all day, you know. I like it. I like a busy day. Makes it go by quick. No real problems.
You wake up happy?
No, I woke up stressed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but then I caught it. I was like, why am I stressed? And there was no real pressing issue. And I got in the shower.
Off to the day.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That was good to have. What's up, Randy?
No, I'm good.
Word. So the thing I wanted to talk about, because I had a weekend full of family stuff, and I don't get to see my family very often, which is something I'm a bit bummed about. My grandmother was basically the last grandparent, so that whole generation is now not a thing, right? And so, well, my question was that so we're eventually probably gonna have some children, right? And then they're gonna have some children and we're gonna pass away. But we have people to look up to, our parents, you know. What is it that you think the generations kind of grant us, you know, in terms of perspective, in terms of genetic realizations or like career realizations? Like, it's a kind of an abstract question, but that is my question.
You had a specific like direction with it?
Mm-mm.
I don't know. I mean, generation to generation, I think the generation above you, I was always taught like there always has to be respect, you know. Even if I don't know, I had this conversation with someone a little while ago about like grandparents, and there was always like a side that you were a little closer to. But I mean, that's a little off topic, but still just, you know, offering respect and when you're at their home, doing anything you can for them. But I don't know, I think respect is probably the biggest thing, at least in my experience.
I mean, I definitely agree with that. It teaches you, even like seeing my younger cousins, you know, interact with their moms who had lost their mother. You know, I was like, wow, like, you know, they were like getting them drinks or like giving them hugs.
Yeah.
You know, making sure that they were fed, you know, and cared for. And it was interesting. Is like basically like the culture of my family was displayed to me in a very short period of time, where usually that's not the case. You know, like people are kind of doing different shit. So respect is huge, dude.
Yeah.
Right?
I would say for me is they kind of gave me a blueprint. They gave me a blueprint on how to be like respected and loved by a lot of people. Like my grandparents were well respected and loved by many people, and so are my parents, and I feel like to an extent so am I. So I feel like the blueprint of like what to do, what not to do, what to do in certain situations, like it's almost like stuff that comes second nature to me. Like I don't even think about it.
It's like in you because you saw it so much, right?
I saw it so much, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Before,
And I saw that it worked. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing to be told one thing, but to see it actually work, and now me apply these things in my own life, and they work. You know. So I feel like they almost gave me a blueprint of where I can talk to anyone of any age, and it works. Like it's not population specific.
I'd imagine there's some discrepancies too, right? So it's like, from my understanding, prior to the age of about like 12 or 13, you don't really have the ability to ask your parents the questions that are like a little bit deeper in life. Like you're kind of predominantly observing, like, and kind of subconsciously taking in the things that they do and kind of like absorbing that into your own character. and then at some point, you know, you realize that you don't really agree with everything they say, and then you're like, you start questioning, like, well, why do you do it this way? Or like, you know, and then as we get older, like into our 20s, there's even more of a divide where you're trying to figure out kind of who you are, you know, and really what the differences are and whether or not you're willing to double down on those. But from like you skip a generation and there's such a disconnect. You know what I mean? Like you didn't get to see, usually, at least I know in your case, you were raised by your grandparents for a little while. Not like predominantly, but you know. You don't really have that like subconscious picking up their tendencies. You know, when for a lot of people, like grandparents aren't around their house. You know, they're like somewhere else. You know, whereas your parents are directly available to you all the time.
Just to iterate, my parents did raise me. I just spent a lot of time with my grandparents. Like when my parents worked, like that's who I like spent most of my time with and who watched me. But like I was raised by my parents too. I don't want to make it seem out there that my parents gave me up and my grandparents took care of me.
No, Randy's parents are amazing for the record.
Yeah. Just to clarify for the people watching.
So are your grandparents around?
No.
They
I never met my paternal grandparents.
Sorry to hear that.
And then my grandmom died in 2007. And then my grandpa moved in with us, and he died. Died about 8-9 years ago. So yeah.
So how do you think we can go about kind of facilitating that bridging of the multiple generations, right? So like you eventually have children, hypothetically, right? And then your parents and now grandparents. Like my brother's about to have a kid, which is crazy to me. First grandparent or grandchild from my mom, and you know, so how, like as the middle ground, you know, how are we gonna go about connecting our kids, the next generation, to the philosophies of our older ones, or is that even something that you want? You know.
You mean like the grandparents?
Yeah, like your parents are eventually gonna be grandparents, right?
Yeah. So you mean how do they connect? Like the kids?
Like ideal, like in your head, like the ideal kind of culture of a household. Like, what do you think?
I think that's determined by them,
The parents.
the grandparents, and the kid. Right? Like, but mainly the grandparents, because the grandparents are the adults and the kid's a kid. You know what I mean? The kid doesn't really know. But yeah, that you just rely on the grandparents to be in the kid's life. And then you also rely on your parents, which are the grandparents, to still have more wisdom than you do. Because they're older.
Period.
Any
stage of life.
Any stage of life. Now, I mean, you know, whether they have that wisdom or not, I guess, you know, but typically, you know, as you get older, you get more wise. Typically. So.
You're welcome to have some blueberries.
Thank you.
Nick?
Yeah, what you said actually was something that I was gonna bring up, kind of as a side topic of bridging the gap, and I was gonna say about, like, I think a good way to bridge that gap could be like just traditions within the family. So because the grandparents, maybe their grandparents have been doing this tradition that long, and it continues to get passed down. It's a way to connect older generations together. And every family has some type of tradition, you know, even if it's just holidays or stuff like that, to pass on and explain the importance of it culturally or just within the family.
Even like the little ways that they go about serving, or like, you know, the specific meals that are the special thing. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be like this big tradition thing. It could just be like, you know, just little thing that just continue to get passed down and down and down.
I guess I mostly asked this question out of kind of guilt, because I didn't spend very much time talking to my grandmother, because I was like across the country, which really isn't an excuse currently. But it's just fascinating to me that, you know, I get told these stories about my grandfathers on both sides and the type of people that they are, and I realize how much of that, like how much of our grandparents really still lives in us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just our tendencies and stuff like I'm sure even just like subconscious tendencies, you know, that we don't even think about, probably still exist from there, which is crazy because that's basically like 100 years, you know, of like difference.
Yeah. Yeah, you really get like molded without realizing it based off their impact and the things they. I think those are you. I forget what you were saying earlier, but like talking about like up to age 12, you're kind of just observing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like really pivotal, I think, in shaping you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. I agree.
So, and I was the same way. Like my grandparents watched me a lot when I was growing up because parents work and it's just how it is. And I wonder how much that like shapes your character, even like now, like 20 years later. You know?
Right. Because it's like it's like the first domino, right? Like it's like you launching off when 12 years old. It's like, oh, okay, now
Yeah.
I just have this quirk about me. But,
I also think your observation skills are a lot better
and when
up until 12.
up until 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if that's the number we're going with. I don't
I mean,
know.
yeah, it's just a
12.
guesstimation.
But whatever that number is, I think as a kid, like I picked up on everything. Like not even like I picked up on emotions, like passive aggressiveness, like non-verbal cues. I picked up more than verbal cues.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you just pick up so much more. But it's probably because you're not talking, right? So it's like all you can do is listen.
You don't even know what you want to do.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there looking at stuff. On a whim, you get up and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Man, so that was kind of my what I've been thinking about recently, and I at least little other point that I wanted to make is my dad and my grandma were basically the bridge between like certain parts of the family, and I feel like now I'm like trying to connect so much shit like in my life and like have like communities and stuff like that, and like, you know, and I'm thinking to myself like, dude, what a tragedy it would be if you didn't use these skills that you're accumulating to connect your own family together. You know, like all the different brothers and sisters and the cousins and like the offshoot ass cousins that like no, like you never even knew about, you know. But just the immense power that comes with that, right? The love that you get from those people just by virtue of having their genetics. And even potentially if you want to do like career things, you know, like there's people that are doing all types of different shit, right? So if you ever need that type of service or if you're thinking about expanding and growing into that, you know, imagine having this resource that loves you, that wants you to have this information at your fingertips. And it's incredibly powerful, you know. It's a double-edged sword, I'm sure, for attention and stuff, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. I will let either of you take the reins from here.
What do we say?
Since we're staying on the family topic, well, since we're on the family topic, I'll stay on it. Somebody who like I really respect, I was having a conversation with her a couple days ago, and we're talking about parents. The parents came up and like how sometimes like the older you get, you feel like sometimes you have to be the parent to your parent, right? And she reminded me that every stage in your parents' life they're going through it for the first time. You know what I mean? So like when you were a baby and they were, I don't know, 25. At 25, that was their first time like having a kid, and then their first time doing it at 30, and then their first time doing it with a house, and then their first time doing it with like multiple bills. Like they're going through life for the first time the same way we are. Right? And sometimes we don't realize that, or that gets lost because they're our parents and we expect them, we hold them to a higher standard.
True, yeah.
But it's new for them too, you know, so they're allowed to make mistakes and they should be expected to, you know, because nobody's perfect.
And on that same note, like, there's no reason to believe that they can't learn from those mistakes, you know, and like
Exactly.
grow as people, because you probably have to. Think about some like arguments that I've seen in my family. It's like, and then you could look back a month later and it's like, oh, that's a little different than it was before, you know.
They gain wisdom.
Yeah, straight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because parents, in any kid's eyes, the parents are like these people that could have it all figured out. But in reality, it's like they're a human being, you know? It's like everybody's struggling when things are like new, they don't know what they're doing, there's no like guidebook to life, you know? So, just embrace it.
Yeah, definitely makes you think. You know, give the benefit of the doubt to, I guess basically anyone that's older than you, right? Like to assume that they know 100% of everything.
Yeah.
Just be compassionate about what people are going through. Like the amount of times that I've seen in school, for instance, that people are just like unconcerned about the emotions of people that are older than they're teaching them. You know, it's like they're just like this pillar. They're like a stone pillar that's just there and has always been there. It's like, no, bro. Like every birthday, they're older. You know, like they haven't done that thing. So it's like, why are you being an asshole to them? Ask them how they feel. You know, be nice to them. Might be having a bad day. You know, they might have lost a close friend or something. Like it's it's a lot.
I need to think like that more, like whenever someone's kind of being rude, or especially if you know the person and you're like, that was weird, you know? Not just be like, let it go, but like reach out to the person, you know, and be like, what's going on? If you like, I think all of us are capable of still reading people, you know, like body language, all of that. And if you know somebody, you know when they're off, you know, and being that person to reach out to them and say, you know, you need to talk, what's going on. I think it's one of the most underrated like acts. Just checking in on someone when you notice something like that.
Oh, dude, I was literally talking to Matt today about that. So, one of my close friends, Matt, is a gymnast, and he works with a lot of kids. And he was telling me about a situation where, one of the students wasn't having like the best time at home and stuff like that. And he was like, as a coach, he's like, I don't know how I fit into this, because there's other people that are kind of more qualified to potentially tell this kid how to deal with these things. But I was like, dude, at the end of the day, having someone that listens to you when you're going through some shit is like everything, you know? And it could be the strangest person ever, like, you know, but just having that vented out and like getting that off your chest, and at least having that connection with another human being is like incredibly therapeutic. And also I feel like it gives you more faith for society in general and like human beings. You know, it's like there's actually kind people out there that are looking to help me out. So huge. Couldn't agree more. See, if we had any sponsors, this would be the time that I'd be like, oh, well, this is
Sponsored by Light on Love.
my man James Clear.
Oh, something. I had a conversation with someone about this not long ago. Stick with family. At what point do you have to, like, this goes with like parents, but sometimes, you know, depending on the family dynamic, it could be different relatives. I don't know how to phrase it, like, go against what, let's say specifically your parents are telling you need to do. You know, because they'll, like I said, a lot of us have that mentality, like our parents know, you know, they just know better, you know, so you trust their word a lot, you listen to them. But, you know, you come across these things where you just disagree. And I'm talking like, you know, bigger things, life things, stuff like that. And at what point do you have to say, I can't live my life the way you want, you know? It's a tough balance, because you don't want to come across as disrespectful or ungrateful or act like you know more. But you also have to live your life and make your own decisions.
Go through it for the first time yourself, yeah. Randy?
I don't know, dude. For me, I always get the consult from my parents, and then I make my own decision. Sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. I feel like once I started funding like my lifestyle, like everything I do was just relying on me, and I didn't have to like rely on my parents for anything. I felt like it got a lot easier to make those decisions and live with them because the consequences are mine. I also felt like it was easier because I felt like they gained a level of respect for me. They were like, all right, like you've gotten to a point where you can take care of yourself. You make your decisions and you live with the consequences. And I think now we have that mutual understanding. And me and my parents disagree on a lot of things, right? But we respectfully disagree, and it's like sometimes we agree to disagree. But I always make my intentions clear if I disagree with them on anything. I'm not like, this isn't like a disrespect, or this is just something I gotta do it my way. And if I fail doing it my way, well then I learn from it. And if I'm right, then I'm right.
And it might actually be a lesson for them too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of try to get the pride out of it, but although it takes pride, but yeah.
I mean, I've been thinking about, I want to change certain things in society, and I know this is going to require like a lot of resources and a lot of stuff that obviously if my family had, I would more easily be able to do that stuff, but they don't have that stuff yet, and there's a reason. There's actually a lot of reasons. And again, no disrespect, like I can't live my life the way that my mom does because I'm just not her. I don't have nearly as much energy necessarily as her. I might not have as big of a heart as she does. You know what I mean? Like, so, but I do have like an analytical part of myself that I know is a little bit different than hers, and potentially my brother's. That I've grown to appreciate about myself, that I've grown to love about myself, that I think is like the reason that I'm like useful in any capacity to the people that I know. And I think it just comes down to, especially in Pakistani culture, like my culture, like your family matters a lot, and you gotta be super respectful. But I feel like you can show the respect in the little things. If they're like, yo, get up and get me some water, you're like, all right, word, no problem. And that in itself goes a long way in being like, yeah, I'm not trying to like split away from you in any capacity. Like I'm still doing this stuff on the side, sure, that you're like a little skeptical about, but anything that you taught me when I was younger, like it's still there. It's apparent. Or like sometimes like she'll tell me, hey, like when this happens, or when older people come in, you do this, and then next time that happens, I show her that I listened. That I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, I'll do this, no problem. You guys hit it. You just gotta. It shouldn't be out of malice. I think as soon as it gets into like what Randy was saying, into like a field of pride, and kind of like tit for tat, like eye for eye type of stuff, like that, like a lack of forgiveness for things that people have done, that's just like, you're kind of limiting your own growth and not like letting life kind of into you, and I think that's like the biggest discrepancy. That's like the silver lining when it starts becoming tit for tat. It's like, then you're missing out, then you're really like, you're fucking up. But other than that, just be respectful and do what you gotta do, and don't hurt anyone, build up your family, man. Like at the end of the day, is basically you. It's like, why would you not do that? You know, I mean, obviously people have like situations where families like, where tit for tat happened way earlier in their life, you know, and the older people were showing that, and so it's really hard to reconcile that and forgive it. But at least in my personal case, you know, I don't really have that going on too much.
I'm sure it's a harder thing to do too when you have like, well, it is, but like really supportive parents who are usually right, you know, like, like to be honest, dude, I haven't had many times where me and my parents don't agree on shit.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
I mean?
what I was
Like,
gonna say.
I'm gonna do this because it is, and they're like, that makes sense. Go ahead. You know, like, you know, like I'm gonna go to dental school and I'm gonna live in Philly, and they're like, why don't you stay here? And I'm like, it's easier for me to be out there. You know, you give the reason, and they're like, all right, makes sense. We disagreed there, but you know, then I made a solid case, and then they're like, okay, that makes sense, right? I think you have to, when you disagree with them, you have to show them that it's almost like you're showing them that the reason why you disagree and you have this conclusion is based off what they told you.
Oh, got him.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, they raised you. There's
Exactly.
a reason
Yeah.
this is happening,
Yeah.
right?
So when you hit them with stuff that they want to hear and you disagree,
oh.
The master speaks.
Yeah. The
Damn.
student becomes a master.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a wonderful lesson about convincing anyone of anything, right? I've had plenty of conversations with you where you're like, Throb, you said this. And I'm like, fuck. Yeah, for sure. So was there any questions that you guys had that were outside of the realm of, well, I'm sure there's questions that you guys had that were outside of the realm of this, but we can take it to a different direction.
Yeah. Based off what Nick told me about 25 minutes ago, and based off what I see at my job, don't let people make you feel inferior. You know what I mean? Like, I find that people tend to hide behind the don't take it personal, right? So they'll say something that's like, for lack of a better term, out of pocket, and then they'll be like, oh, don't take it personal, that's just the way it is around here. Like, don't take it personal is not an excuse for someone to treat you in an inappropriate way. So if you feel like you're in that situation, you need to stand up for yourself in a respectful way. I'm not saying start throwing chairs and, you know, but I think you need to make it known that that's not right, and you don't tolerate that.
Any tips on how to do that when you're in a setting where you're almost set up to feel inferior?
Keep going.
You know, like, I mean, obviously the school setting, but there's plenty of other situations where maybe someone being there longer and they hit you with the, you know, don't take it personal, it's just how it is here. And you've been there 2 months, this person's been there 10 years, you know. You battle with that, like, respect versus standing up for yourself.
I think you need to raise awareness to it, one. And I mean, depending on, like, there's school, there's work, whatever, but I think you need to leverage yourself and be like, I don't know, you need to show why you're worth not being treated that way, right? You need to approach it in like, you address it one-on-one, and if it doesn't continue, then you have to go a different way about it. I don't really know the exact answer because I think every situation's different.
Yeah.
I think for certain, sometimes a one-on-one conversation is good. Sometimes you need to go to a superior. But I think solidarity in a work situation like that, like we all feel this way, we should all stand up. I think it's, you know, someone told me a revolution is just a bunch of people saying, we're not gonna stand up for this shit anymore, and the shit gets done. So I think you need to have, like, if one person is feeling that way, then chances are a lot of people are feeling that way. And I think you just need to have allies and multiple people say it in order for it to get fixed.
Yeah. It's all in the approach.
It's all in the approach, yes, exactly.
I think a lot of people have a tendency to kind of rely on stronger wills to get that message across. Like, for instance, that might be something that's happening for the last 5 years, and then you come into the situation and you voice it, and someone that's been there for the last 5 years is like, yeah, I've been thinking that too. But then you think to yourself, well, why don't you say anything about it? Like, why is it still like this? Yeah. And you kind of have to, I think when you, like a revolution is a group of people coming together, but in my opinion, a revolution requires a figurehead. You know, like, it's like someone that's willing to get a target painted on their face. You know, and that's where I think 90% of society will just back off. You know, and be like, I'm not willing to take that risk.
Yeah. The reason I asked my, let it go versus speak up for yourself side of it is because it's kind of like to pick your battles sometimes with those situations. But I always think of this one scenario. Somebody told me about a job they had. This person kind of mistreated them. Not like an everyday thing, but every now and then it would be like, you want to just, you know, take that person aside, say something to them, maybe just tell them off flat out. They just like bit their tongue, didn't say anything. That person left the job. Years later, she goes to interview for a different job, and that woman is there.
No.
And she was like passing by as the interviewer was like giving her a tour of the place, and that woman said to the interviewer, "Oh, she's interviewing here, you should hire her on the spot." So, I don't know, it's a long story short, it's like, when to let it fly and when to just bite your tongue. That's just something I struggle with, because I think about that a lot. And some scenarios, it's like, you know, you can definitely speak up. It's not like, you know, there's a fine line, but just to play devil's advocate. You know?
Yeah. I think it comes down to, like, are you doing your job? Okay. A. Are you doing what is required of you, which is your job? And are you doing more than that? Are you doing more than what's required of you? Then you're probably sought after regardless of how you act.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I think the trouble is when you're doing the bare minimum and then you're trying to do that stuff, then it's like Randy's point, it's like, if you're replaceable, obviously, like they're gonna value your opinion more, they respect you. Right? So it's like, if you're ever in a situation where you're saying to yourself, oh, that's not part of my job description, you know, like, I don't do that shit.
You're lost already.
Yeah.
So,
And there is something to be said, like, okay, if that's consistently the case, then yeah, you should go and ask for a raise. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason. But you gotta do this stuff first. You gotta put in the work first, you know? But then we'll be like, okay, sure, I'll take this off of you. You know, like, yeah, I got respect for you.
do you think in that situation you gave, if the person, the worker, so you saying she didn't react in the moment, right?
Right.
Right. If
She took the high road.
I assume there were other people there.
In those scenarios?
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah.
So do you think if she would have went to her one-on-one and just said, look, I feel like the way you treated me here, like I didn't really appreciate, you know, I felt like it was unprofessional.
Yeah.
You know, I understand you may be having a bad day or whatever. Do you think she still would have got the job at the other place?
It's tough to say. It's tough to say. Yeah, I mean, probably, but I don't know if she would have said what she said.
Or did this lady hire her so she could bully her at the other place?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's 100%.
It could be a lot of different things. Right. I don't know. I don't know the full extent of the like bullying situation either, but you know, people of higher power trying to like enforce their power where it isn't really needed. You know, if they're doing their job, like you said, if they're doing their job well, and
I
no
think
one else has any other problem.
I think your perceived value of yourself in whatever workplace it is directly correlated with how often you stick up for yourself.
Really.
If you think you're replaceable and you don't think you're worth much to these people, you're more than likely to just
Yeah, I'd agree.
fly under the radar or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I'm the shit, and I bring value to this place, you're more likely.
Yeah, there's a fine line there though. You know, because those people, I've worked with people that are like, this place would fall apart without me. I'm sitting there thinking, that's a fucking lie. You know? Like.
But they would stick up for themselves.
Yeah, they would.
And that's what I'm saying.
But that they don't correlate, is what I'm saying always. But.
No. What I'm saying is the belief that you have correlates with how often you'll stick up for yourself.
Oh, so it has nothing to do with right or wrong.
Oh.
Yeah,
It's just
no,
the fact of the matter.
Yeah.
I see.
So by these people saying, I believe that I believe this place will fall, whether it's true or not, they're more likely to
Yeah.
they're the ones talking in the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we gotta,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But by virtue of them believing it, some people do believe it.
Yeah,
Right? In order for somebody to believe in you gotta believe in yourself
that's true.
first.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big proponent of like social sanctions, right? And I have no reason to believe that someone that's 40 years old is going to be better socialized than someone that's 15. You know, there is no, if that 40-year-old person didn't spend the time or didn't have the attention to detail that the 15-year-old did, then yeah, they're probably less graceful in a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like age and how long you've been in a position, you can't supersede the amount of knowledge that an individual has. And I think a lot of the time, I think the reason that America is where it is right now is because so many people don't say what they need to say. You know? And then the few that do are just like such a small group of, again, people that believe that they're irreplaceable, that it's kind of like, it's very polarized, you know? Whereas it could be a more like equitable society where like people, you know, they're like, okay, give me a little here, give me a little there, but like, you know, yeah, like any person in a position of power, if they're being an asshole, someone should say you're being an asshole. You know, like.
Oh yeah, hold them accountable for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They have to hear that.
Yeah.
Because who the fuck else is gonna tell them?
Yeah.
And saying it in front of people, that takes some real balls.
Oh yeah.
You know, or like, sorry, I don't want to gender this, but that takes some real courage. You know. And then honestly, in a lot of cases, I think the message is equally as loud as when you go and have that individual conversation. But it just depends on how gracefully you go about it.
I don't feel like the public social sanction is as effective as the private social sanction. Because I feel like the person who's being sanctioned in front of people, now they feel like they have to save face, like it's egotistical, like, oh, I'm not gonna let you show me up, and it gets like that as and you kind of forget, it goes right by over your head what the person's talking about. Versus if it's like one-on-one, it's more intimate. It's like, all right, you can actually like, there's nobody judging.
Yeah, but you might get shut down 7 times as hard one-on-one. Whereas,
Well, then you were gonna get shut down in public anyway.
I think it's delicate. I think it depends. Based on at least the little calling out that I've done in my life. Oh, it's huge, dude. You gotta.
Probably depends on the person though too. Some people are much more likely to listen regardless, you know, to what the person has to say. They might still disagree with you, but some people won't even hear what you're saying. They'll be like, I disagree, and they immediately go into defense mode, you know? So, open-mindedness.
That's for the hands like this
Yeah.
that are good. It's like, whoa, you know, hands, palms to the people. or like this. You know? I mean, so I'll give an example. Imran Khan, who is the prime minister of Pakistan, or was, he has conversations with people like shit on him all the time. You know, like, in my opinion, for kind of stupid reasons. But he's always just like, he's like, okay, well, I don't agree with your main point, but, you know, and he'll have like this kind of uplifting afterwards, like message of hope, convincing, hopefully using the language that they use, you know. Obama's kind of like that, you know, if you watch like interviews with him doing that stuff. So I think there's grace just comes to mind, you know, just, you gotta have the self-worth and you gotta put up with some shit, you know, and balance it.
That's right. That's the point I was gonna say. Is just like there's gotta be a balance, you know.
Because who knows? Like maybe that thing's been in place for 10 years for a reason, and you just don't have the data.
Right. But like speaking up in that scenario isn't a bad thing, but it's all about the approach. You know, like oh, I'll notice this. Why is this happening? You know, is there a reason? Like, don't go at it aggressively. Try and figure out, get more information on it, and if it still isn't checking out, keep pushing.
And the more information part, sleep on it. Oh my God, if you're upset, sleep on it, for God's sake.
Yeah,
Please.
what is it, 72 hours or something you're supposed to give it? You're supposed to give it some time, not even like one night.
Yeah, like, because you just won't have the right words, you just won't have the right demeanor about it, like, it's just not going to come across the way that you want it to come across, like, when you're feeling that way, you know? So, especially when someone like really riles you up, it's like, careful. I mean, I see it, dude, my brother tells me all the time with the hospital setting that's like that, where like, they're just kind of domineering and they're like, shut up and do your work, you know?
Yeah, that's a big, like, chain of command, you know, different hierarchies and things like that. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of, like, you gotta stand up for yourself in a kind of work environment.
But I argue that if you don't, like, medical school is the start of that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm in a club that was supposed to be for all of the different schools. And the medical school was the only one's like, nah, we're too good for this shit. And I was like, alright, that's what you're teaching your kids, so be it. That's what they're gonna turn out to be, you know.
Palms up.
No music for you.
No music for you. Med school.
Anything else you guys want to discuss? You want to call it here?
How much time have they were at?
Make sure it's still recording. Are we good? I can't tell the time, but I assume it's been at least half an hour. Anything pressing that you've been, like, life stuff that you've been trying to work out? That could be like a fairly quick.
I've been waking up stressed, like I said.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. How do I crack that? Like, I think what I said to myself this morning, like, why am I stressed? You know, I just kind of like pan through the things happening in my life. I was like, it's okay, you know? I don't know, I'm healthy.
How are you gonna sleep?
How do I go to sleep?
Yeah, yeah, like, what's your nightly kind of ritual that might?
Before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
I've been reading before I go to bed. It's been nice. I've been going to bed pretty early, like maybe 11. I'm passing out.
That's not
Going
bad.
to see Randy. Yeah, but I still wake up tired as hell and stressed. So maybe going to bed early isn't the answer.
You gotta stay up till 1 playing Fortnite. Wake up
Something-
You know, dude, sometimes
Something's missing here.
Sometimes when I do that shit, that I just like revolt against life, I feel great in the morning.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like I'm like, yeah.
Maybe it's like I didn't really get to do much like that day before
Maybe that's it.
or something. Like playing video games gives you that little bit of like socialization and like talking and satisfaction, even if you're just playing video games.
Yeah. And ideally, obviously, you're playing video games with your homies.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
which
the only way I feel.
happens to be the case currently, which we have that available. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think knowing you, I think that would be the thing. Like if you squeeze more of your day, I think your tendency to get stressed would be actually less, because then you'd be like excited about when you get out of work, for instance, because there'd be like something more to do.
I mean, I like work too. It's not even like I'm waking up stressed about the people at work, the stuff I have to do. Like, I actually kind of look forward to it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what it is. It's got to be something like life-wise.
I think it's your. I'm gonna go on a different route and say it's your body reacting, giving you a sign. It says you're missing something.
Like, I don't even know it.
Like you're not doing enough of something, and it probably is. I mean, it seems like you have the fear of getting into that work, sleep, eat
Yeah, vicious
routine.
cycle.
Which may be a self-fulfilling like ritual.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. So it's probably you're probably stressed out that you're falling in that path.
So you gotta break it up.
The days are too similar.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see if you wake up stressed tomorrow.
Yeah, because this is a
Going
very
back,
different
that's
day. In some
That's true. I
senses.
wonder if I woke up stressed last week. What day was that? Wednesday?
Yeah.
Thursday.
E2, I think.
We'll see.
I wake up with anxiety every day, but it's just like
Like that feeling in your stomach, or just like thinking about stuff.
it's like that feeling in school when you woke up in the morning of school when you about to go do something for the first time,
Yeah.
right? And then I gotta just sit there and be like,
You'll be fine.
yeah, like it's
Yeah.
alright.
Like I can talk myself
Yeah,
out of it, but
Yeah.
it's like why do I have to? I don't want to wake up like that.
I think I start getting anxiety that I got anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, why am I waking
You're
up?
giving
like
yourself
this?
a panic attack.
Almost.
And
And I think I get
I'm not-
pissed.
I'm saying like me too. I've been at that point where
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of balls in the air, a lot of stress factors.
I think it really just comes down to do you give yourself like a spiritual break during the week,
Yeah.
right? Like during the work week. Do you do that 1 day a week? And then are your weekends, are you filling them as much as you should? Right, your time off. I think those two, and then literally a morning routine of before you even open your eyes, lay in bed for a second and just come to terms with your breath and be grateful for how your body's working, you know, like the things that you have around you, you know, like wake up with a sense of love for life. And it's very difficult to be stressed out after that. You know,
That's usually what I tell myself. Like, you're blessed to be able to wake up. You're blessed to be able to go to work, to do what you want to do. There's no reason to have anxiety today. You got everything going for you.
I think
Just go conquer the day.
so. I've been trying to use this strategy, and it's worked. But what I realize is if I'm grateful for the same thing every day, it doesn't work anymore. So every morning I have to find new things to be grateful for, which requires some thought, which is kind of hard to do right when you wake up. But
What about if you journal it before you go to bed?
I think the ideal is literally setting your goals for tomorrow before you go to bed, so that you don't even have to be stressed about what you're gonna do. It's just there.
Mm-hmm. But to an extent, and that's a very easy solution.
So hard to do.
But it's because it's boring. It's like, damn, I gotta plan shit for tomorrow.
But then you can plan something fun too. It's like
Yeah,
you know what I
in
mean?
a way, it gives you more freedom, even though it seems like it's less freedom.
The ultimate irony of
Yeah.
scheduling out your day.
Yep.
Literally.
Just like when I pack my lunch, dude, like in Tupperware the night before, get up in the morning, I'm like, oh, it's right there.
Grab
Just
it.
grab it. Oh,
We're done.
you know, we're done. And now when I wake up in the morning, it's like, damn, I gotta find the Tupperware. Like making noise. I gotta wash the spoon when I get back. Ah, shit. So yeah.
Try it out. Well, thank you so much for watching the Ethereal podcast, episode 3. Nick's face is the last podcast that we did.
Why?
Because the last time was Randy.
I actually saw that
yeah, I see
podcast in the sauna. I watched it.
Nice.
The second one or the first one?
When did I say?
Let us know what you think in the comments below, and actualize your potential.
Oh, this was the second one.
No. I think the first one was with Matt.